One of the most beautiful parts of our planet is the ocean. The smell of sea salt and the splash of chilled water on our ankles is unlike anything our world has to offer. The multicolored species and marine life makes the ocean even more beautiful. For many people, experiences at the beach are some of our best memories. Running around in the water, having bonfires, or just enjoying the view with loved ones are dearest to our hearts. But over the years, the oceans keep changing. Hello everyone, and welcome to the Green Lab Coat. If you enjoy living a healthy lifestyle backed by science, make sure to subscribe for more videos. Also, don't forget to hit that like button to help the algorithm. Glad to see you here. Many people are under the impression that because other issues on land have come to light, that we're making improvements of the natural disasters of the world. Truth be told, there is an even bigger crisis, and one that isn't talked about much. 45% to 85% of the world's oxygen comes from the ocean. Phytoplankton is responsible for the majority of the air that we breathe. With no ocean, there's not much oxygen. Without much oxygen, there is no us. The oceans help regulate the climate. Over 90% of the Earth's warming has been absorbed by the ocean, and it also acts as a storage pod for greenhouse gases. So indeed, our land would be much warmer if it wasn't for the ocean. But it comes with a cost. The ocean waters are now more acidic, and drilling for oils is also to blame. As one would imagine, oil spills kill off a tremendous amount of sea life that lives nearby. Now add over 33,000 drilling sites and counting, and those oil spills are increasing nonstop. The Gulf of Mexico has an entanglement of pipes, wells, and energy infrastructure due to generations of oil extraction. The worst part is most of this equipment is no longer used, but danger to sea life extends from states in the United States that aren't even close to the coast. The Heartland region states are the main growers for soybean and oil. Being GMO crops means they get sprayed with bountiful amounts of synthetic fertilizers, which then get watered down and cause nitrogen to run off every time, eventually making its way into the Mississippi River and then the Gulf of Mexico. Now, most people are unaware that the Gulf of Mexico is basically a dead zone, meaning no marine life can be sustained there. Nitrogen runoff has oversaturated the spot to the point where all the fish, plants, and oxygen are non-existent. Consequently, this has an impact on seabirds too. Less oxygen and plankton means less food and sources for fish, which then die off. Now, when fish populations decrease, seabirds have a harder time finding food for them as well as for their chicks. Healthy ecosystems depend on all species to effectively do their part. But when outsiders like mankind interrupt these cycles, ecosystems die off species by species. Apart from this, we've unfairly turned the ocean into a dumping ground. Ocean explorer Sylvia Earle, who's logged more than 7,000 hours in the ocean and has dedicated her entire life to ocean activism, spoke out in 2020 stating that, quote, "There are strict littering rules that prevent anyone from so much discarding a plastic bottle into the ocean. It is unconscionable to think that someone could deliberately sink an entire ship to discard it. The ocean is not a place for human waste and unwanted products," unquote. This was after the ship owner of Ocasio had the ship sunk in the Indian Ocean after a wreck. Unfortunately, this is common. It's estimated that 13,000 shipwrecks have been abandoned in the ocean worldwide, which contaminate the water and add more oil spills, according to the UN Global Shipping Regulator. Now, just as many people have thought of sinking ships into the ocean, so to not have to pay for the cost, the oceans have become a disposal area for plastic waste as well. People aren't only failing to recycle, but improper discarding has caused plastics to end up in waterways and run off into the ocean. As you can imagine, it's a detriment to sea life, and a report by Greenpeace read that the majority of plastic pollution comes from industrial fishing nets. One would think that fishing nets are used over and over and over again, then probably discarded in the trash can at the minimum. But unbeknown to many people, those enormous fishing nets are tossed back into the ocean and left to turn into microplastics, which the fish eat. A lot of times, they also get lost due to poor weather conditions. This has been common practice for decades and decades. Unfortunately for us, we are just finding out. In 2018, about 300 sea turtles were found dead as a result of entanglement in those nets. Sea turtles are beneficial creatures, and it's unfathomable how the empathy of these fishermen could be so low. Between 2002 to 2010, 870 nets were recovered from Washington state. It was estimated that no more than 32,000 marine animals were caught in those nets. Additionally, Marine Services reported that an average of 11 whales caught in nets per year from 2000 to 2012. 11 whales per year. Still, plastic pollution trumps oil spills by a milestone. Microplastics are eaten by fish, which are eaten by us, which can then be passed on to nursing babies, and incidentally is now a major part of our food chain. But the fish industry won't stop anytime soon. With all the fish that we eat, why would they? But they have fish to the point of species endangerment. The reason overfishing is so bad isn't just because precious lives are lost, but because they can medically help us. Now, 40 compounds from deep ocean organisms can be used for coronavirus treatments. Shark livers, for example, have compounds that can help, and this can be done without killing the sharks. Now, Sylvia Earle describes the ocean as a library of priceless knowledge. She says that we can gain so much knowledge which can then be applied on land without hurting any species. However, overfishing is making it harder to obtain and therefore provide less solutions to mankind. The role that whales play in climate change is powerful. For an average lifespan of 60 years, whales can absorb about 33 tons of carbon dioxide, taking it out of the atmosphere. They fertilize plankton when defecating, giving us the oxygen we need, and when they die, the CO2 remains out of the atmosphere for hundreds to thousands of years. Now, bluefin tuna and other sharks are another overfished species. They play a huge role in keeping the ecosystems in balance. The declining of shark and tuna means declining of many fish underneath them. The fish that sharks and tuna usually eat are now overpopulated and can't find enough food. Now, many of these fish eventually die. The fish that those fish eat are now going extinct because the fish above them are eating all of them. The shellfish industry, for example, is becoming an endangered species. Sharks and bluefin tuna are needed to eat other fish to keep things in balance, and so on and so forth. When sharks are intentionally caught, it's for something called fin soup, a prestigious dish in China. Shark finning is responsible for thousands of shark deaths. They are being caught in prolific numbers. Now, sharks are first caught, restrained while their fins are being sliced off, and then thrown back into the ocean. You can literally see the poor creatures squirming for dear life, all for a plate with little nutritional value and hardly any taste. Now, the expensive soup is marketed to the wealthy, making it a status symbol. Because sushi and sashimi are hot on the menu, the bluefin tuna population has also decreased by more than 95%. And something even more sad is all the bycatch, aka the extra fish that is being caught by accident. Beautiful and intelligent dolphins, sea turtles, and sharks are a lot of the times caught by mistake. You would think fishermen would have some decency and help detangle them, but as mentioned earlier, they get caught in the nets that are then thrown back into the ocean. Since they're unable to come up for air, they die. You can think of the ocean as a big city, and each fish plays a role. The coral reefs are the buildings, the plankton is the electricity, the turtles are the taxis, and then you have the doctors, teachers, and other important beings. One simply cannot survive without the other, and just because humans aren't in the ocean, this affects us too. Now, dolphins play the role of the doctors. They keep diseases in check by eating sick or dead fish, and they keep the oceans healthy for other fish. Now, sea turtles act as delivery boys for smaller species, carrying them around and across the ocean. They provide habitats for fish and food from their dirty shells. As you can see, each fish serves a purpose. But there's one other fish I want to bring up, a very common and popular fish on our plates, and that's none other than salmon. The majority of the salmon we eat comes from fish farms. As much as fishermen attempt to make fish farming look sustainable, it simply is not. Salmon are confined in underwater nets that drop down into the ocean. Because they are forced to swim around in the same vicinity with hundreds of other salmon, they end up swimming in their own feces and can catch illnesses and lice. Salmon is a most favored dish, but it takes twice as many pounds of fish to make food for one fish. 1 pound of fish used for a feedlot only provides about half of the actual feedlot. In other words, more fish are being killed through fish farming than is believed, and is the exact opposite of sustainable. Salmon, as well as the food that's fed to them, are being taken from some of the world's most sensitive spots. People in Peru take about 2% of Peruvian anchovies, while the rest of the 98% are caught by multinational companies. Arguably, a study by the Canadian Journal of Fisheries and Aquatic Sciences believes overfishing may be more to blame than water pollution or climate change, but is also to blame for something even more sensitive. Villages in Africa or alike depend on the fish for survival. While decades ago they could easily obtain the fish nearby, they now have to go out further into the sea to find fish. And this has been detrimental to families, as drownings are now a lot more common when in efforts to find food that used to be so readily available to them. Now, the African waters are like a powerful magnet to illegal and foreign fishing operations. Kofi Annan, a former UN Secretary General, states that Somalia alone loses 300 million annually to pirate fishing. Now, these countries like Africa and Peru are known for their poverty. The fact that these enterprises continue doing what they're doing is absurd. Malnourished mothers and children depend on small fisheries because they have no money, and they continue to be forgotten, and local fisheries have no power over industrial fishing. Times are rough for thousands of people who depend on small-scale fisheries. Profits for pirates mean starvation for African kids and other kids around the coasts. Mankind never thought they'd be capable of so much damage, but regardless of how big our ocean is, this has been done in a matter of decades. The term give and take has been forgotten. Now, through sea laws, enterprising businesses have been given the right to mine the high and deep seas. Because it's for rare minerals, it seems justified. But the truth is that the oceans are being eradicated just for beaches to be repaired and to give our cell phones and laptops energy, all while these resources are already available on land. If they mined on land, neighborhoods would be bothered, but do it on the ocean and nobody bats an eye. China, Japan, South Korea, Russia, followed by the European Union, are the countries giving the biggest handouts. Subsidies to the fishing industry are estimated at a whopping 35 million worldwide. Essentially, taxpayers are paying to ruin the ocean. Now, when compared to ocean pollution and climate change, overfishing has been the most harmful of all. The United States isn't clear fault either, but they are a big global leader in fishery conservation. Now, according to research conducted by scientists of University of California in Santa Barbara, we could add 35 million metric tons of fish by 2050 if we eliminated harmful subsidies. Since the World Trading Organization makes up of mostly Americans, it would be a big help for the US to lead these efforts first. Then hopefully China, along with these other countries, can follow suit and put an end to harmful subsidies. Now, another statement by Sylvia Earle. We are competing with dolphins and whales for the fish, yet we have plenty of choices. We don't have to compete for the food that their survival depends on. We can eat something else. Whales depend on lagoons in Mexico to go to raise their calves. The water needs to stay healthy, unquote. Given that the ocean is tied to land, there is a list of things you can do. But in simple terms, if you want to help protect one of the most beautiful pieces of nature ever known to man, you can start here. Number 1, donating to organizations that protect the oceans. This is probably the best way to reform subsidies. Protected marine life is currently less than 2%. If we increased it by even 10%, we could start seeing a difference. Number 2, start recycling now. Ensure those water bottles and soda cans don't run off into streamways. 3, reduce your carbon footprint. Air conditioners, cars, and leaving the lights on when you don't need to. By reducing greenhouse gases, we can help the ocean temperatures decrease, possibly to what it once was. And like we end in every single video, if you want to go vegan, do this. Stop eating fish. Not only are we keeping this corrupt industry in high demand by always eating it, but the fish are full of plastics. If you don't want to go vegan, do this. Limit your fish. Do your research and make sure the fish you're buying is wild fish and not from industrial farms. In the end, the choice is yours.